welcome, folks, to another live stream, The Art of Advocacy. Today, I'm your host, Dr. Sheldon L. Eakins. Make sure that you're checking out. Make sure you're following the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I could appreciate your support there. As always, this show is sponsored by Leading Equity, Becoming an Advocate for All Students. My book, my copy is getting a little tattered and worn. Been doing book studies all week, so that's been fun. Working with various groups, discussing the book, discussing various topics, just talking about equity, inclusion, diversity. Just having those conversations is always good. Keeps my brain working, keeps it going. So I have been enjoying those times. So yeah, that's why my book looks the way it looks. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, please support your boy. I appreciate that. Also, if you have bought the book and you enjoy the book, please jump on Amazon. Take 2 minutes to write a review. That would be great as well. And then the final thing that I will bring up in regards to the book is the Audible version is available as well. So if you're one of those folks, like, I'll be honest, I'm not always having enough time to sit down and, cuddle up and read my book with cup of coffee right next to me. I don't always have that time. And so sometimes in the car, if I'm taking a trip, if I'm just going to work, if I'm going to the gym, wherever I'm going, just being able to play the audio version is fun as well. If you're used to listening to my voice from the podcast or the live stream, you're in luck because I narrated the book as well. So I'm excited for that. So you'll get to hear me more and more. I'll be in your car, I'll be in your ears, whatever it might be, as always. All right. So feel free to support that. Now, today we're going to be talking about education, specifically being an educator of color across seas, overseas, international waters, if you will. We're going to have two special guests today, and we'll be talking about that. So feel free to get your questions ready, get your pen and pad ready. Best believe this will be a episode that you do not want to miss. Always subscribe, share with your friends and colleagues, those who you think will benefit listening or watching. I always want to say listening because I'm just so used to the audio only, but watching this as well. So my special guests for today, I got two. I'm going to just read brief bios. Okay. I'm going to bring them on in just a moment and give them an opportunity to share a little bit more about themselves and what they do. But Kevin Simpson, Flint, Michigan native. Kevin Simpson owns and operates KDSL Global, a leading learning organization. He and his team have served thousands of schools, educators, and leaders worldwide in over 60 countries. My second guest is Miss Marla Hunter. Marla Hunter is a first-generation American. She's native of Memphis, Tennessee, with Jamaican parentage. She's the founder and president of Love Teach LLC, a global education consulting firm. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring them both on. I hope y'all was ready for it. I sometimes think so. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, Kevin, it's been a while, man.
It's been a minute, I know.
A couple years since we talked, huh?
Has it been that long?
I feel like it's been a couple years since the last time we chopped it up, man. I'm glad to see
you too.
So, I just read one, a couple sentences of your bios, and I'm gonna start with you, Kevin. Why don't you share a little bit more about yourself and what you currently do?
Yeah, definitely. So Kevin Simpson, like you said, a kid from Flint, Michigan, like to always represent home first and foremost. Currently based in Dallas, Texas. And 17 years ago, I took a leap and applied to become an international teacher. The three options that were presented before me were Dubai, Egypt, and Laos. And I chose the location the one that was probably the one that I wouldn't have chosen. I chose Vientiane, Laos. I worked there for 2 years under a phenomenal leader named John Ritter. Him and I are still in contact. Everything he said, he delivered on in terms of my transition from the U.S. over to Southeast Asia. It was amazing. It really set the tone for working abroad, as well as setting a high expectation of what I, as a teacher, would expect of others in future international opportunities. I currently own and operate KDSL Global. We are a leading learning organization, have worked around the world with stellar educators and consultants such as Marla Hunter, Reem Labib, Gita Raj. And then we, a few years ago, almost 6 years, we'll be 6 years in March, all set up what is known as ALOC, or the Association of International Educators and Leaders of Color, which came out of just issues that we noted, and we're not afraid to address as it relates to the international school ecosystem.
All right. Well, welcome. And now, Marla, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
So Marla Hunter, now Hooper, recently got married in June. So
congrats.
Here we go. But I, as like Kevin was saying, I also was in international education, and I began that journey, I think it was 2014. I wanted to do it earlier, but life happens. And 2014, I got that push from a friend of mine, Keisha Hugh Aban, and I went to China, and I enjoyed it. And I got the international bug. From there, I moved to Nigeria. And when I say I absolutely love it, I worked at the American International School of Abuja, and I was the first expat person, and actually a person of color, to be over the early childhood department. Through that was like a deep dive within culturally relevant pedagogy for me, because I was able to bring in local people from other countries to talk about what it is that they were doing and to help my students. And then from there, I moved to the UAE, and that's where I met Kevin and started working with KDSL Global and doing things. And from that, moving back stateside, and now full-time at Johns Hopkins University, where I teach graduate students in culturally relevant teaching and pedagogy in math, science, and STEM. So that's who I am. That's what I do, and I absolutely love it.
I love it. So the two of you, just so I'm clear, the two of you met at UAE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that. Like, so, and then now you work together, do collaborate and those kind of things. Kevin, let us know how did all that come together?
Yeah, so after I left Vientiane Lao, I came back stateside, and then I went to Qatar working with what was then known as the Supreme Education Council for a bit. So that was sort of my entry into the Middle East. So I was coaching and mentoring teachers at a Qatari school. Phenomenal, again, experience, because like Marla said, you're connecting right with the local population, with the culture, embedding that, but also learning about it simultaneously. And then after Qatar, I went to Dubai. So my buddy who was born and raised in Dubai was like, get over here. There's a lot going on in education. You'll figure it out. And so I worked with a startup school with a company called GEMS, and a big IB school. And so I stayed there for a couple of years and came back to the US, and then set up a company. When I came back, I started doing freelance consulting around the world, and then centered myself and was situated in Dubai. And then Marla and I were introduced around, I think it was like probably her second year that she was there. And they were like, oh, you got to meet Marla. She's from the US. She does consulting work. She does some work in math. And so her and I connected, and we just stayed in contact. And it's interesting now, we're both stateside, and we're both connected, and we're working with the same organization. So she's doing some work with urban teachers. I'm doing some work with urban teachers on their transformative SEL side, with a focus on anti-racism and equity and social justice as well.
So let me ask you this, because I'm curious. Because this has happened to me before. This is why I'm asking this question. Is it, you're two individuals that are outside of your home country, and you're two Black folks that I'm assuming that you both identify as Black. Mm-hmm. And so do you feel like people are like, oh, you need to meet up with Kevin, or you need to meet Marla? Because that's happened to me. Like, I've been in places like where it's just weren't a lot of Black people. People say, oh, I have a friend, or I know somebody. They didn't tell me they were Black. They're just like, I know somebody that you should reach out to, or you should connect. Let me invite them over. And then the next thing you know, it's a Black person. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate it, but I know what's happening here. Was that kind of similar to your experience, Marla?
Yeah, that's usually how it goes, because what happens is, because there is not like this huge network. There's a network for travelers. to go internationally and to look, because you have nomadness, you have Black travel movement, you have all those things, and you have brothers and sisters of blah blah blah, whatever the country is, but you don't have a place for Black people or Black and brown people to meet up who are all certified educators of any sorts, of any schools, to meet up. So one of the things with that is a girlfriend and I, Keisha, we came up with brothers and sisters working at international schools. So that became like the hub for being able to say, hey, I'm here, let's connect. And so it makes things a whole lot easier, because you're able to find people who are like-minded and to be able to work with them, whether it is you've moved back stateside or you've moved to a totally different country.
Okay. Kevin, do you want to add to that? Because why is that so important? I mean, I've taught, technically I taught overseas. It was still part of the United States. I've been in the Virgin Islands. So I've had that experience, and I enjoyed it, but I was the only person, the only stateside person I knew. Now I would say that my experience working overseas as a teacher, and this is, fresh out of college, never had, my first teaching post was overseas. And I just didn't know. I guess the main thing for me was learning about the importance of serving the country and the community that keeping in mind the culture, the language. Because I brought in my own stuff. Like, oh, I'm from Texas. I came in with my Texas swag, but folks just weren't really grasping onto that. And then I really realized, you know what, I need to really learn more about the community that I'm serving. So has that similar experience been for you, Kevin?
Yeah, I would say the same experience, from each of those, each time going over. I felt like the international school was like a bubble. I felt like once I left the grounds of the school, then I'm in the local country. So for us, the thing, again, going back to Vientiane Lao, I love that we had language class. We had class on the culture and the customs that was explicitly and intentionally taught to us as part of our onboarding. I arrived a month ahead, like the new folks arrived a month ahead of everyone who was returning. And that was so we can be oriented into the country, into the school, into knowing exactly what to expect and things of that nature. So it was a lot of things that were told to us in advance. And then it's like, once we arrived, it was like that smooth transition. That didn't happen every time. Like that was Vientiane Lao. Now, Qatar and Dubai was a little bit different, because again, my frame of thinking was, this is what I experienced when I went to Southeast Asia, so everyone must be doing this. And that was not the case. And then, like you said, that comfort, for me, the year was 2000. I was in grad school at Michigan State, and I met a brother that looked like me. And so the way I learned about these opportunities teaching overseas was through him, because him and we were in the same class. And so we just interacted. It was like right before lunch. He said, oh, after, we were just talking. He said, after I finish this summer, I'm going back to London. And it sort of looked like London. And so that's how I even learned about, opportunity to teach overseas. It was, again, someone, he looks like me. He talking about he teaching overseas. I'm like, let's have a chat. And so he was the one who introduced me to all the different organizations who you can go through and put your information out and apply, paid, unpaid. So that was sort of my introduction. It was random, wasn't planned, and things like that.
Got you. Okay. I got another question. I always have questions. I guess that's what I do. I'm a podcaster. I always got questions. But I'm just curious. Like, so Marla, you said you recently got married over the summer. Is your spouse, are they an individual that is supportive of the international like, is that something you would move and do together? How's that look?
I actually asked him how he felt about it, if he would be willing to go. And, you have to explain how it is, especially if you're going, he would be a trailing spouse, which means he's not an educator. He would be like a house husband, because his visa would be under me. That's a lot for some people, especially if we're talking about Black males. Yeah. To be able to say, okay, well, I'm not going to really work per se. But I was like, so you know what, in 5 years, if a great opportunity comes up, what you think? And he's like, as long as it's not China, we're good. And I said, okay. But honestly, I don't know if I'd want to go back fully, because I've gotten so used not to being in a traditional school setting. Um, right now, because of the work that I'm able to do at the university level, I'm able to be able to still work with schools internationally, but then also prepare educators if they want to go internationally, especially our black and brown educators. And that's what I talk to them about all the time. Like, you need to be prepared. If this is something that you want to do, I'm all for it. I'm here for you. But this is how you need to go about it, because it's not an easy feat, especially if you are if you consider yourself black. If you consider yourself black and you want to go into international education, it's not for the weak-minded.
Why is that?
Because, and I'll be honest with you, they don't want us there.
Do you think it matters which country, or is that a
No,
general?
and it's not the country. So let me correct it. It's
Okay.
not the country, it's institutions.
Okay.
You have to understand, stateside, we have our unions, we have our boards, we can sue, we can do all of these things because we have all of these laws that are put into place. And we know things happen. But once you cross that threshold and you are no longer in the United States of America, there's basically kind of no rules. It's the old boys club, mainly white old men.
So Anna says that she's hiring in Nicaragua.
Hey, okay, Anna.
There's lots of opportunities out there. Look, let us know. We got a list. Leadership positions. So part of what we're doing now is looking at some recruitment stuff.
Got you. Okay. All right. So now I interviewed a gentleman. He spent time in Seoul in Korea, and he was a black man, and he was telling about his experience, and he ended up going there twice, 2 different times, and he shared something similar. Like, he felt like he wasn't really wanted there, and he was able to find a black community, church community that was he really latched on while he was out there. So you're not the first person, Marla, to mention, yeah, I don't think they really want us there. So, and maybe Kevin, I'm gonna throw you in here, because what is the draw? Like, why would I want to do it? Right. So I've done my time overseas on a black island, right? So I blended in until I start talking. But if I go somewhere else that maybe isn't a lot, there's not black people on the, where I go, what is the draw? Like, why would I want to do that if I think folks don't want me there in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think Marla, both Marla and I intersect because we both had the China experience. Like, my China experience was a little bit short term. So I had 3 months there, then a month there, and I did some consulting work back and forth. And out of all the places I've been, China has probably been the most interesting in terms of, connecting with people, being ready to be stared at, people want to touch my hair, people want to, Kobe Bryant me. I'm like, let me get this haircut for free. So it was, out of every place I've been, it was probably the most interesting in terms of like me standing out. I'm 6'5", I'm black and 6'5". I'm gonna stand out, and so I think, and you're right. So I think, but like Marla was saying, it's not for the weak, because the process, and then just to hop on the ALOC, ALOC was started because one of our colleagues, a black woman, was told they don't apply. They want a white British man. So if out of someone's mouth that came, that directly is talking about race, gender, geography, and who we don't want. And so it's that it's knowing what you're actually getting into. I think that's the piece. But I think for us, it is knowing that there are these opportunities outside of where you're from. For me, when I first went over, I was a policy geek. So I love anything legislation going on, especially US Department of Ed. I used to read it. So when I read No Child Left Behind, I was like, the US is about to be very interesting. Let me go and see what other opportunities exist outside of the US. When I can learn, where I can learn in other places, and potentially bring back. So that was my sort of exit. When I read No Child Left Behind legislation, what was going to happen with testing and ranking, I was just like, whoa, hold on. I mean, for me, it just wasn't an appeal for me. So I sort of exited stage. I was probably 8+ years in the US at that point. And so I was like, let me look at some other opportunities outside and see what else. Because I'd already knew about it. 5 years before that, I'd already met, the brother. He told me about the opportunity. So I'm like, this might be a now thing. And then I had a mentee who was getting ready to go to Sudan. And that was another thing. I said, oh, Lenny's about to go overseas. Okay. So Lenny's going, let me go and make this leap right now. That's when I started to look and research, look at countries, look at international schools. And then that was when I started to consider the opportunities outside.
Got you. Okay. I got a couple comments that came in while you're talking, and I got to bring this one up. Ashley said, but you could be Kobe for Halloween. Could have been Kobe, Rest in peace. Rest in peace. That's my man, Black Mama. But I could see that being a thing, like stereotypes and people asking, thinking you're somebody that you really aren't. I mean, did you ever embrace that? Did you try to get some perks? Because you said you're 6'5", so I could see folks, saying, that don't have a lot of experience. They see American, and like, did you embrace it at all? Get some perks, free movies, any of those kind of things at all?
Look, no, definitely. You said you did in Marla, China.
Yeah, I would get free drinks in China. Like,
I was trying to get a free haircut.
No, because at that time I was doing my second set of locks. So that was a thing too. So like, I didn't just have natural hair. Mm-hmm. Now I have locks. So it's like, okay, let me touch it. And you have to learn. I remember when we learned the phrase for do not touch, and it was Buyo Chawo. So like, we were saying it and they would be like, because they were so shocked the fact that we're telling them don't touch. But the thing is, like, you have those perks, but after a while it gets daunting.
It gets old.
Like, you don't want people always trying to touch you or take pictures of you. And I remember there was one time, like, I was trying to get on a bus to go somewhere, and the bus driver literally looked at me and drove past. Wow. He looked at me, like, looked me dead in my eyes and did not stop. And I had a white coworker who said, well, maybe you were at the wrong stop. And I looked at her and I was like,
how would the driver know?
No, that's not it. That's not it, because DD drivers, which is the taxis, they would drive past you too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I had that experience.
So I mean, like, it's an awesome, like, I think somebody said, why would you want to teach? Like, it's an awesome experience. You get to meet a lot of different cultures, but then you have to also understand there's a huge expat group of families, and a lot of them are Black and brown too.
Yeah. And
those kids are growing up and never having a Black or brown teacher in their life, especially if they're U.S. Embassy kids and they're going to a U.S. Embassy school.
This comment down here, I think, says it all. But the Black students all over the world need Black teachers and principals.
Yep.
I think that sums it up right there, to your point.
And we are all over the world.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a difference, because I remember in China, when I know that my parents were afraid of what I would do, because their children had never had a Black teacher before. And this was kindergarten, but I was me. So, and I do a lot of singing and the dancing in the classroom, and bringing in their culture. One of the things is I stopped asking them to use their American name. Like, let me know what your parents call you at home and let me learn it, so I can be able to call you by your name, and not whatever this name it is that you all use, so that you think people cannot pronounce what your name really is. And the parents, they never experienced that before. And so their apprehension towards me, they realize, okay, she really does care about my child. So much so, I still kept my WeChat because of these parents, and they still keep in contact with me. They still send me red envelopes during those times. because they know their kids still talk about me, and their kids are like 12, 13 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, the same. They really do. I've had some of my former students reach out from that first class in 05, just sending pictures of where they're at, who's married, who went to college, what they're doing. I mean, that was in 05. And like Marla said, I would have kids and parents that would come and say, at first it was like, okay, this is their first American, they said this is their first American teacher. Because I remember my first class, I had kids from everywhere, Brunei, Thailand, China, all over the world. Then it became, okay, now this is their first Black teacher, and so I mean that would come up, that would come up, and so you do, I mean, even in saying that, it's like that, going back to that representation piece, it is that sort of that feeling like, okay, I want to make sure, for me, I'm like, I want to make sure they have a great experience, period, with me. But like you're saying, that even that reach back and just seeing sort of where they're at right now and what they're doing, and that they were like 10, now they almost like 30. Yeah. So we had back then.
Yeah, same for me. Again, my first year teaching was overseas, and so that was what, 12, 13 years ago. And so I've been watching Mike's, and I did middle and high. So I'm watching kids getting their doctorate degrees. I'm calling them kids. I'm watching my former students getting their doctorate degrees.
But they're still our kids. That's the thing. They are still our kids. It doesn't matter how grown they are. I still, like, they will call me, you're still my baby.
You're right. You're right. I mean, I just naturally just saying my kids, right? So I'm watching them getting doing, teaching now and just all kind of stuff. Like, I remember when you were in the 7th grade. Like, it's crazy to see, like, in their families and just all the different things that are happening in their Facebook friends. That's, I folks say what they got to say about, Meta and everything, but I do appreciate being able to keep in contact on a social scale with a lot of my former students and their family, their parents and guardians and siblings and all that stuff. So that's cool. I want to ask this question: pay or benefits, perks. What does that look like overseas? Now, in the United States, those who are watching, if you're in the United States, I know we got teacher shortage, we got burnout, we got all these things going on, especially with pandemic teaching. So I'm not trying to recruit folks to go overseas because we need you here as well. But I'm just curious. Marla, what are some of the, what was the pay like? What were some of the perks that you experienced as an educator?
So I will be honest with you. It really depends on the country that you go to.
Okay.
So when I went to China, the school that I went to, I mean, honestly, I was getting less than what I got when I first started teaching. But my housing was paid for, my internet was paid for, my cell phone was paid for. I was reimbursed, like if I had to take a taxi to work or anything like that. And the plus for me is that Hong Kong was just 45 minutes away. So I could go on the bus ferry and every weekend go to Hong Kong if I want to, or go to Macau. Travel was cheap then. So even though I wasn't making, I think I was making like 38,000. But by that time in the US, I was making probably 45, 40, 46. It kind of measured off. Now, then you have the thing, what people don't understand is that you have to make sure you're keeping up with your own. You still have full benefits, insurance, all of that. Most of the time it's global insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it even when you come back stateside for the summer. But the only place where I can say that I did not enjoy like the pay and the benefits was the UAE for me. But I didn't, and this is just me, I didn't enjoy the UAE because it has an Instagram lifestyle, and that's not me. So I wasn't the one going on yachts and boat trips and stuff like that all the time. And the pay wasn't all that great. And the insurance wasn't global insurance, it was local insurance. So it really all depends on your school. And you have to, one of the things that I have to remind people is every school can say that they're international, but they're not. They're international as far as it comes to the students who are attending the school and not actually the school itself. So you want to be careful. Yes, there are tiers and everything to how schools are looked at, and especially if they are affiliated with the U.S. Embassy, you may get more money. But a lot of people say that they don't want to go to South America, they don't want to go to the Caribbean because they're not getting paid a whole lot. But there's a caveat to that, because the travel is great. You still get all your health benefits. And the thing is, it really depends on what mindset you're in. I will say the best place that I was in Nigeria. I was making bank in Nigeria. Now, we were landlocked, so travel was hard, but there was a travel bonus because they wanted people to leave, like to go and venture out. But again, it really all depends on where you want to go, what kind of lifestyle you want to live, have for yourself, because those are the perks. I was spoiled in Nigeria, 100%. I had house help Sunday through Friday. I had a driver if I wanted to. I had my own car. Get I live life.
Why'd you leave? I'm just saying.
Because that good old boys mentality, where I don't see color. And it's
But it's in Nigeria. I'm confused.
Nope, it's not Nigerians.
Okay, help me out.
It's the people who are running the school, because you have to understand that. Also, I'm in Nigeria working, and you have local staff that's working at the school too. Mm-hmm. Their pay is not the same as our pay. That's first off. And this is wherever you go. Local staff does not get the same as an expat staff. Even if they have certification, they don't get the same pay. Then you have to understand also that diversity, equity, inclusivity piece, it disappears a lot of times, because there is still that whole notion of this is how I'm going to run this school, that white is still right, and if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. So you don't stay where you're not wanted.
Wow.
Or if you're not wanted, we don't want you anymore. That's
if we don't want you anymore, you get
new leadership comes in, and then you might get ushered on out.
Yeah, you get ushered out. That's what happened in Nigeria for a lot of us. A lot of us were ushered out.
Wow. I think Nigeria, like, again, my experience, I blended in until I started talking. Right. So I'm thinking the same thing, but I guess it matters on who's operating, who's running the organization, and that can be a factor. So that's something for us to consider. Kevin, what about you? I mean, tell us about, what are your thoughts on perks pay, and what was your experience?
Yeah, it's like Marla said, it depends. I'll say all international schools are not created equal. So Vientiane Lao was affiliated with the state overseas school department. So while the pay was not as high as what I was making in Fairfax County, like Marla said, I was 29 years old with a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. I had support that came along with the house. I had annual flights. So they paid for flights to and from the U.S. Back to Southeast Asia, life insurance, health insurance. We had, professional development funds to attend conferences for books and things of that nature. So in terms of like the overall package of everything, it was very different. I remember arriving in Vientiane Lao. They picked me up at the airport. And so I had relocation money that they gave me. And so when I arrived, because $1 is 10,000 kip in Laos, they said, you're now a millionaire. So it was like, I looked at them like, huh? But once you did the 10,000, on up, it's like, okay, yeah. But yeah, that was a perk that was there. It's like, once you land, we have funds we're going to provide to you to make sure that, you're good. We have a driver service that's available. They had people who helped me find the house. Even they were like, here are 3 different real estate agents that will, go with you. You just make an appointment and they'll show you different houses. So it was very smooth, in terms of the transition from the US over to Southeast Asia. But yeah, like Marla said, depends because that was not the case when Qatar. I arrived in Qatar. No one picked me up at the airport. Mind you, they told me someone's gonna pick me up at the airport. Housing, when I got there, they were like, oh, we're gonna have your 1 bedroom ready. It's brand new. Now they sent pictures and everything. Now I got there, that place was not gonna be ready for another month. They were like, we're gonna have you stay with such and such in his 2-bedroom. I'm like, who is such and such? You know what I mean? I'm like, so Qatar was short-lived. Like I went to Qatar, worked for a month, and I was contemplating. The work hours were good, and I'm not gonna sit here and play. The money was amazing. Like I was on a 7:30 to like 1:30, like 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Schedule. But I mean, the quality is like once you left the school, it was just like, y'all ain't even got the housing together. And then it was like, I remember one point, the person who was responsible for, onboarding orientation was like, oh, I'm gonna get your passport and get your visa. I look in the back seat of her car. You got these passports. You got people's random passports, and you're not getting my passport. I think I might need to go back home. So that was a short-lived, and that was one of those learning situations, And then again, same thing. Like Martha, I asked the questions, so the questions were asked, but it was like they just were not ready. Now the Dubai experience was way different. Like saying, we had short-term. Fully furnished housing in a full service housing, like apartment place. And then they said your place will be ready, which will be brand new within 2 months. You're gonna stay in this apartment house for 2 months by yourself, solo, not with some random person. And then it was ready and everything was as they said, pretty much, and that was all set and sorted and situated. But yeah, you have all kinds of schools, and it's we always say when we're talking to folks who are interested in coming, you have to ask the questions. Don't assume you're in the States anymore. You even have to ask questions about that insurance. I've had people ask if that insurance, once you come back to the States or wherever your home country is, does that insurance work or not? Because if something were to happen, you want to make sure it's covered versus it only works in the country where you're working. So it's like with everything that's on paper, because we might be thinking, based on previous contracts or based on wherever your home country is one way, but you got to understand, like Marla said, you don't have unions and things out here. You are your own advocate. You have to advocate for yourself. And so I think that's why, going back to those groups, it's important for the ALOCs, the brothers and sisters in international schools, the brothers and sisters in these different countries, because you can post those questions and people will respond. They'll DM you and answer those questions.
I think one of the biggest, things that I should have asked before I went overseas was just simple stuff such as, is there AC, central AC? Because when I went over to the Virgin Islands, that's not a thing. You got to have fans, and then there's mosquitoes. So like you got windows open, but you getting toe up from mosquitoes biting you. So that was my experience. I had to get used to that, right? This is what they do, but that was brand new, and I was like, man, I probably should have asked. Is mosquitoes going to be an issue, and am I going to be burning up in my own house? So those are just like little stuff that I didn't think about, because again, you're used to a certain lifestyle in the United States, and you don't necessarily think about that probably won't be there when you go overseas. So yeah, I expected language to be some barriers, but I didn't think about like lifestyle might have to change, or just things that I'm used to having that you don't necessarily think about. So that's good to know.
Yeah. We're good just jumping here. I had Joanne at the school, and Joanne had a list. She's like, you're going to be new here, so let me send you this list of stuff. She was like, you're not going to have a visa right away, so you are not going to be able to leave this country. There's no Target. There's no like. She let us know. She's like, there ain't no Target. There's no Walmart. Here are the local stores. So she really sort of set the tone. She was like, you have any questions, let me know. She's like, my husband and I have lived here for decades, so that was a plus. And then I had a mentor. So I was linked right when I said yes to the job. They linked me with Bruce, and Bruce and Jody had been there. So Jody was on a leadership team. I interviewed with her. Bruce was her husband. He was working at the secondary level. And they linked me right with Bruce. And any questions I had, Bruce answered every single question. You know, and I think those two pieces, having that Joanne, who was like our liaison with the new staff, and then having Bruce, those are like the two that I, you know, they were like, don't anything, just ask, you know. And I mean, they were definitely, you know, very helpful, you know.
That's what you have to ask for now, especially as people of color going into international education. You need to ask, because a lot of times they will give you someone to speak to. You need to specifically ask for who you want to. So like, do you have any Black people at your school? Oh, you do? Can you connect me with blah, blah, blah? So you can actually talk to that person and get like the inside details of what is happening and whether or not you really want to go.
Okay. Well, okay. So haircuts or getting your locks retwisted, or finding food that you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? What was some of your experiences overseas with those? Again, small stuff that we don't always think about, but they can be a challenge when you're somewhere else.
China, it was expensive as far as it took forever for me to find someone to do my locks there. Like little snack. So I love Dr. Pepper, and it was hard to find. So whenever the shops had them, I would buy them in bulk.
Yeah.
Nigeria, I didn't have a want for anything. Not for real. Because first of all the food was similar to me, for me, because I'm Jamaican. So it was great for me. Getting my hair done, I had somebody to come to my house to do my hair. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I found somebody. The first time I went to a salon to get my hair done. The guy did locks, and I was like, do you do home visits? And he was like, of course. And it was cheap for him coming to my house to do my hair. So same thing with your nails. You can find somebody to get your nails done, and then ask them to come to your house. Nigeria was love. Nigeria was absolute. It was clutch. Now the UAE, we had like a pipeline. So like those who have been there for a while, they had made friends with people at the grocery store. So when things would come in, people would know ahead of time, and then people would go. And so you would make a shopping list. So other people would be, if they saw it, they would pick it up for you or whatnot. The only thing that you have to be careful of are like your lotions and things like that, because they had bleaching creams in them. And that was both in China and Nigeria too, but more so China and in the UAE. Everything had bleaching cream in there. So you had to be careful with what it is that you were deciding to buy as far as lotions and creams.
Wow.
Yep.
Kevin, what about you? It was easy to get haircuts.
Oh, I always went on them recommendations because I'm like, let me see somebody's product first, you know. So and it always, you know, even my mentors in Dubai now, you know. So whenever a new barber would come into town, we'd be like, we talk to each other like such and such cut hair. Like when I go back to UAE now, I was in Dubai recently. I can go to 1847. My boy is in there. I don't have to do anything. I sit down, he cuts my hair. Laos, I had twist. I had that fro. I had twist until I went home and got it cut. China, when I was there, same. I word of mouth. I found somebody that, you know, was like, oh, this person is a good, you know, contact. So Nigeria, when I was in Nigeria, no issue. So again, it just depended on the country, but I always went on, let me see, especially when people like, I had a bad experience. I'm like, where am I not going? You know, so same thing. But those creams, I just bring my lotion from the US, because when they told me that they had whitening, it was some bleach and whitening stuff in them lotions in Asia. I was like, I'll bring my stuff from the US.
I heard about that. I heard about, like, because I've done I have some trainings on colorism.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I did a little research on some countries that they have those creams and they're pretty popular. Because in a lot of countries, the lighter skin, and even here in the United States, I mean, lighter skin often gets treated better than the darker skin folks. And so, but that's, I mean, is there a warning label on there, or is that just acceptable? I'm just curious about that.
Sometimes there is, but then like you kind of know after a while, just by the brand. So like in Nigeria, I knew because it's the same brand that's in the Caribbean as well. So I knew the brand. China, you had to just look at the before and after pictures that they would put on the bottle. So so after a while you recognize the bottle.
Got you. Okay. Let's spend the last few minutes on leadership, right? Because I know that's a lot of the work that the two of you do is leadership aspects. So if I am, let's say I am someone that is wanting to go overseas, international education, and let's say I have a leadership position, what kind of strategies would you provide to individuals who are in those type of positions, people of color going into I guess I was thinking, like, if you're a Black person, you go to an African country, you're good, but that doesn't seem to be necessarily the case either. So let's just say you are someone who is at least an expat, and so you're wanting to work out there. What tips do you have, Kevin, for those who might be in leadership roles?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely like Marla was saying earlier, connecting with others who have similar identities to you, who are familiar with wherever it is you want to work. So let's say it is in Africa per se, and seeking out those who are in current positions or were in previous positions that have worked in those places to get, again, exactly as much knowledge and as much information as possible. The thing with most of the different countries, they have what is known as sort of regional associations. And regional associations are the ones that sort of lead professional learning. They have consultants that come in. So Marla's did this work, I did this work in different associations around the world. And that's, again, another way to sort of, because you interact with different leaders. They have leadership conferences and things of that nature. What we did, because especially at ALOC and with Nadine now works with International School Services, we were in conversations for a couple years, and we kept hearing that there was no pipeline, meaning that there were no pipeline for folks of global majority, folks are Black, Brown, Asian, Latino, to enter into leadership. So we actually designed one. We designed a Aspiring Leaders of Color program, and it's more or less for those who aspire to leadership. So not necessarily people who come in having already the leadership qualities. But one thing, and I'm sure Marla can speak on this too, I've seen folks who have a leadership background, who have been a principal, who have been director of elementary, director of high school, I go through a list, who have been assistant superintendents, who will take a teaching job at an international school because they've not been able to matriculate through accordingly into a leadership position. And I've seen that numerous times.
And specifically people of color, they're not able to, so they have had all the credentials, maybe even have a doctorate degree.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not able to obtain these leadership positions.
Because it's about who you know.
Yep.
Okay.
It comes down to, after a while, like you will have schools that say, hey, we are hiring minorities. And I hate that term because we are the global majority. Mm-hmm. Or we are hiring people of color. Are you really? Right. But are you? Like, what are the prerequisites that you're going through in order to hiring the said person? Or you're saying no person of color has applied. A lot of times, if we don't apply, it's because we've already heard about you. So we're not applying to your school because we've heard about you.
Yep.
So therefore, when we get and that's how it is. Like, when we get into a certain place and it's good, we then start telling everybody, hey, yep, come here. We have a great admin. Oh, there are tons of leadership positions. Oh, they want to change it. And that's how you'll get places that have tons of people of color in it that's running the show, because you've had this connection. You have one person in there or two people in there, and they're like, okay, this is a good place.
Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see that, yeah. And people share that.
If that head of school leaves and they get somebody else, and that person is not so good anymore, then we'll dip.
Yep.
And we'll go somewhere else. And what happens is, a lot of time we get labeled as traveling teachers, or what's an excursion or vacation teachers or whatever. But that's not the case. We'll stay 1 year, 2 years at a school, especially if that's the contract, and we won't stay longer, because one, you're not living up to the expectation or things that what we need. You may do it for other people, but you're not doing it for us. Yep. And when we say something to somebody about it, then we become the problem. Yep. And so therefore, okay, let me not be a problem for you anymore. Let me go somewhere else. Yep. Where I know that I'm wanted. Yep. I tell people I'm quick to quit a job. I will. I'm quick to quit a job if it's not in favor for me. And I know that sounds horrible for some people, but I'll end a contract. And a lot of times what happens, you'll get blackballed, you'll get blacklisted. And again, that's that good old boys mentality where your name is put, oh, this person is just a such and such and whatever. And then they won't hire you, because they're still taking, even if this head of school has messed up or this principal has messed up at another school, somebody likes them somewhere and will hire them at another school. So here they go, going to another school, messing up another school.
So, okay, I know it's very costly on the organization's end to, bring someone, ship them overseas and move their stuff, get them set up, all that stuff. So it's interesting to hear from the other end, like from as a educator, it's like, well, it's not necessarily that I didn't, that I'm just here to vacation because I just want to see a new country and just have fun. But how was I treated? How did I feel included? Did I feel like I belong? I get that I'm not local. However, I would like to enjoy my experience here. And so as a result, so I feel like from what I heard from you, Marla, is basically there's two sides, I guess, two sides of the story. And that second side, or the educator's perspective, is not always being shared or highlighted.
And here's the thing. Everybody's experience is not going to be the same. And even if we're black or brown or whatever, everybody's experience is not the same. You also have to remember that kinfolk and kinfolk.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you'll get somewhere and you think you've met someone who feels the same way that you do, but what it is in actuality, they're just trying to survive. So they'll do what they need to do so that they can survive, which in a way I don't blame them. It's hard. It really is hard.
I don't know if I feel encouraged to go overseas now.
You gotta know what you're getting into. I think that's
what I'm saying. Like, I guess it depends on the country.
Yeah,
and the leader. It depends on the leader, the country's
and the leader.
Right. I don't want to sugarcoat it for anybody. I mean, it's a great time. Honestly, it's a great time. I tell people, at least go and experience it for yourself. But each country, each school gives you a different experience. My situation, or how I liked one school, you may not like it. There might be a country that I just look like. Again, everybody loves the UAE. I'm okay with the Middle East. I don't have to go again. I mean, I don't ever have to go again unless I'm doing consultant work.
Okay.
But that's me.
Okay. Well, Kevin, what countries would you recommend? If you're a black person, let's start because it sounds like it might matter racially. It might make a difference. So if I'm a black educator, is there a country that you would say, I've heard great things about this country, or my personal experience has been great? What would you recommend?
And again, it goes back to, doing that homework, asking those questions, and, making sure. I'm hearing some good stuff as of late. I'm hearing some good stuff out of Vietnam. But again, what I feel is, and what I think Marla and I are witnessing, and we've been witnessing this, people will tell, like I said, if it's a good leader, it's a good school, the colleagues, the overall feel, I feel like I could be my authentic self. I feel like there's this sense of belonging that's going on. I want to be there, and I see others that are thriving there, and so I'm seeing like places like Vietnam where there's, a school where I'm looking, I'm lurking and looking like, look what they do. And I'm like, oh, they doing work around identity. Oh, they doing such and such going, So, I mean, there's places in spaces where, it's happening. And what's happening is people telling other people, so you're noticing that and things of that nature. So I'm seeing some good stuff at some of the schools in Vietnam, again, that have a very eclectic group of folks that are there from all over the world. But it depends. It really does. Because I know people who've been in some places in Europe for like decades. I know people who've been but again, it's each individual is so different. I don't know if I would ever go back and work. Like Marla was saying about UAE, I don't mind UAE for consulting. I wouldn't go back and live again, I feel. But like Asia, I'm more or less, I live there. I can go back and consult. But like the day-to-day, and I think that's the thing. It's the day-to-day. It's the once I leave the bubble of the international school space, what is life going to be like? What is like the interactions going to be like? And so I think that's the thing that's always, in the back of my mind, because I'm thinking about possibly in the next year, looking and starting to look, because I couldn't really travel for, a couple of years. So I'm thinking about, hopping somewhere else. And so it's in the back of my mind, it's like, where might that be? So I don't know.
So short answer is it really just depends.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a hard question to answer. Let's see. Someone says there are people at stinky schools that are making things better and embracing BIPOC educators. We are here. All right. So I like the positive.
Because the thing is they are there. And not saying that they aren't, especially with this movement. I mean, we all know, especially as BIPOC educators, we've always talked about diversity, equity, inclusion in our classroom. This is not new to us.
Right.
Culturally relevant pedagogy, culturally relevant responsive teaching. This is not new for us because we've lived it. We've done it in our classroom. So it's nothing. So all the stuff that is coming through now through the pipelines that is trying to make the change, like they need us. They want us now. And they're trying, like a lot of schools are really trying their best. Yeah. Like Dion's talking about Hong Kong. Yes. ESF, one of them.
Yep.
ESF is one of them that is trying to do that work. You just have to make sure you keep your ears low to the ground to see who's doing it.
Who's doing it? All right. I'm going to show something here because I want to get a little bit more information regarding the, ALOC. So I don't know who could probably, Kevin, maybe this is something that you can take on, but tell us a little bit more. So, as we're kind of wrapping things up, folks that want to learn more, if they're interested in getting involved, what could you tell us about the Association of International Educators and Leaders of Color?
Yeah, and like Marla mentioned too, because we always preface with there were brothers and sisters in international schools. Marla and Yvette and some other folks create that space, that affinity space for folks on Facebook. And so ALOC came about, like I said, because one of our colleagues was told, don't apply, they want a white British man. And it was just like, what? And so we formed this as a place and a space where advocacy, where learning, where research, where those who lead look like us, because we saw that consistently, folks being asked to speak in Asia, and it's not one person from Asia on a panel. And this is like, who, and so for us, it is how do you amplify the voices, amplify the folks who've been, like Marla said, who've been doing this work, who might not be known. And so some of the things we have our upcoming conference is virtual next weekend at 12th and 13th. We have our Aspiring Leaders of Color program, the first of its kind. That was not happening because, again, there was a lot of talk around there was no pipeline for leadership. We have various affinity groups that meet. You're looking right now at one, our SWANA group. You have our Asian Pacific Islanders. We have Black Women X. We have different groups that are outside that we even support, again, based on various identities. But again, it was just, for us, was creating a space and a platform where others can see others who look like them, who want to learn, who want to grow. And again, discussing issues and topics that folks didn't want to talk about. You know, it'd be like, ooh, the elephant in the room, every code you can think of in the book, but didn't want to discuss specifically around racism and discrimination that's happening in the ecosystem that is ongoing. You know, I got email today. There's always something going on in this ecosystem. So again, it was for us to, you know, create a platform for folks to come together collectively to meet, but also to know that they are part of a bigger, greater community, especially if you're, you know, you feel like at times you're the only one, you're the it in your institution, in your school. And we see that time after time. So we have a bunch of the members I'm seeing that are online watching, giving shout outs in the comments, trying to get Marla to come to Switzerland at Hong Kong. so that's our up and coming. That's our Aspiring Leaders of Color cohort. Those people are all over, from Middle East to Asia to Africa. And then we have mentors. We connect them with international school leaders, DEIJ leaders, current and former heads of schools and principals. So, yep, that's a little bit about ALOT.
If I wanted to be a part of the next cohort, I guess the 22, is there a 22 cohort coming up? Or if I wanted to be a part of that, what would I need to know?
Yeah, so 20, because we're in what, 22, 23 now. So 23, 24, those applications usually open around February. And it's just an application. Yeah, it's usually like a video. We do like a 2-minute video, introduce yourself, an application. And then we review that. Except we had 7 the first year. So Nayan, who's on here, she was one of our first cohort inaugural like Aspiring Leaders of Color program, and she's now an ASCD emerging leader. She's in her doctoral program. We have a couple people who have transitioned into leadership positions. One I'll see coming up at the People of Color Conference in San Antonio. She's a new administrator at the Houston International School. So we open that up as a video and application. And then this year we had, like, those sponsors, they pay for everybody. So no one had to pay. So the goal is every year for organizations to like sponsor, and then it would lead to literally sponsor and then those mentorships. So ideally it's like, here's the pipeline. So we can no longer say there isn't a pipeline. Here's the pipeline.
There's a pipeline. I love it. This has been a really great conversation. I thoroughly have enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, and I'm optimistic about this opportunity. Okay, I am very optimistic. But would you I guess another question that I have is, would you recommend folks who have families and kids, and do you think this is more of somebody that's maybe solo? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Marla?
Absolutely. So, like, I was shocked. I put it like this: if white folks can have like 7 kids with them going to international schools, why can't we? I mean, why can't we? When I was in China, one of the school counselors, his wife and him were at the his wife didn't teach, but they had like 7 kids. And the school sponsored them. Absolutely. Why not?
Do the kids usually get to enroll at the schools as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They go to the school. Most schools allow the kids to go for free. Some schools, they'll pay like half the tuition or what, but there's some kind of advantage for bringing your children. And also, like, you're giving them a different lifestyle, something else they become third culture kids. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity, especially for, our Black and brown kids, to be able to experience a different lifestyle than what they know every day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if a school accepts you, go ahead, take them. Why not?
Take them. Give your kids an experience that they'll never, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming they can learn the language,
Mhm.
and food and culture, and just make friends,
Yeah, because
lifelong friends.
at most schools, especially if a country has a different language, those classes are given at the school. So they
Mhm.
take an additional language class. So yeah.
Wow, I love it. All right, we're gonna wrap things up. Kevin, I'm gonna throw this to you. So we're gonna go to move to our final thoughts as we wrap up our session today. So if you could take us home with maybe your final, I don't know, word of advice, however you want to end it. What is, I guess, the last thing that you would want to kind of leave us with from this conversation?
I think, and one thing that I come back to, how I even learned about international, education and teaching overseas is, going back to, I think what Nayon said, representation. So as much as possible, like having this platform and sharing our stories out. We recently had Black women in international education share their stories, and it was amazing. Dion, who's on here, she was on our panel with Dominique and Chandra. But I think it takes more and more of us who either we're currently in international education, we find people, we'll interact with people all the time who's like, hey, like you, Sheldon. I'm like, I know you have taught in the Virgin Islands. People who have previously taught overseas, sharing those stories, sharing those experiences. Because I think the more and more, because this wasn't part of, Michigan State's teaching program, they never said anything about this, and so I think it takes more and more of us to share our stories of working overseas, so that others hear and see and know what is possible. Like I said, for me to hear and see from someone who looked like me, like I'm going to London after, the program. So I was like, that's a possibility. I never even considered that, and then my mentee said he was going to Sudan. And so I think it takes for us to continue to share our stories, continue to share, again, those opportunities that are available. And to know, again, that they're for everyone. And there are communities out here who are willing to, answer those questions. So whether it's ALOC, Brothers and Sisters International Schools, if you have that interest, come join us.
I like that. Thank you. Marla, why don't you take us home with your final thoughts?
I love being an educator, and I love the fact that we are everywhere. Like, even where people don't want us to be. That is the most magical part about being who we are as a global majority, right? Because we are absolutely everywhere. So if you want to do it, be like Nike, just do it. That's all I got for you.
Just do it.
Just like, people, one of the things that somebody like before Shonda Rhimes talked about her year of yes, my cousin said to me, you need to live a life of yes. And this before her book ever came out. And I decided, okay, I'm going to live a life of yes. But that yes also included being able to say no to things that didn't work for me. But I lived a life of yes. I don't regret anything that happened when I was internationally. And like those people say I should write a book because those stories, hey, baby, the times you can have at the schools and when you're not on campus, they are great. It's great. So go live your life.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Marla, if we got some folks that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you online?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm in all the places. If you just put Marla, Google me, baby. Yes. No, literally type in Marla Hunter in Google. I am the only Black Marla Hunter that will come up in Google. I am the first. Yes. But email, I will answer it. Info at Miss Marla Hunter, MISS MarlaHunter.com. Yeah.
All right. So Google her, baby. Okay. Kevin, if we got some folks that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you online?
Yeah, it's the same. So KDSL Global, that's LinkedIn, that's Facebook, Twitter is the reverse, global at global KDSL. A-Lock. There's a lot of Kevin Simpsons out there, so there's a few. So you might just search, but yeah, KDSL Global, you'll find me. And then email is kevin@kdslglobal.com.
There it is. Well, again, it has truly been a pleasure. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for your time, folks, especially those international folks that were watching. If you're late at night, early in the morning, whatever time of day it is for you, thank you for hanging out with us as well. If you like the show, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show. We come out every Thursday with a live stream. So Marla and Kevin, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. That was fun. Folks, I'm convinced I would do it. I would do it again. I've like I said, I've spent some time overseas. I've spent 2 years in the Virgin Islands. Again, it's still part of the United States. It wasn't UAE or any of those kind of things. It wasn't extravagant Nigeria. However, I do have some experience, and I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. Actually, my daughter was born overseas. You know, these kind of things, just memories and experiences. So if you are looking for those type of opportunities, I definitely recommend that you look into it. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation was ask questions. You cannot assume that everything that you're used to, the lifestyle that you're used to, all the amenities that you're used to are going to be present in your new space. Ask those questions. Ask what kind of support you're going to have, what kind of food you can get, your hairstyles, your lotions. Make sure you get the right kind of lotions. Don't be out there bleaching yourself if you didn't know there's so many things you need to ask. It sounds like, and then get connected with individuals that can share a lot of their experiences and help connect you and guide you as you're on your journey. You don't have to do these things by yourself. And bottom line, you don't have to do these things by yourself. So feel free to make sure that you get that experience. Remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. Oh, I did that too early. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Let's continue to be a voice leading equity.